Welcome back to the continuing episode of Aging Gracefully, a talk show for evergreens. When we are not agile, we become fragile. And when we are not freely mobile, then we are not fully mobile. And I think that's a good way to look at the themes that we're going to look at today: fragility, frailty, and mobility.
Your skeletal muscle talking to you and say, look, I can't climb these steps anymore. I have slowed down. Before I could do so much. Now I'm just not able to do that much. Why do I feel I'm just weak? And when I go to a doctor, he says your blood sugar is fine, your blood pressure is fine, your this is fine. But yet, I am not there what I would like to be.
So we need to address this from young age so that you don't become frail at old age. So like Dr. Pratibha said, nutrition, exercise, relaxation is a very important aspect that we talk about. Now when you talk about frailty, it is not only the body that is affected, even your mind gets affected. The consequences of this, which we should always worry about old people, is falls. People fall, break their bones, and they become bedridden. All these factors play a role in falling. Nobody just falls there. Your eyes cannot see, so you cannot see the ground how it is. Your inner ear, which is necessary for balance, is lost. So you're shaky. Your sensations in the leg has become weak. Your muscles, which are supposed to support, don't support the body, and you tend to fall and break your bones.
We are completely neglected, but you need to address is your snoring in the night. Okay, that's called as obstructive sleep. So when you may be thin also, so the snoring does not depend on person who has central obesity, but it's more in them. So you snore throughout the night, you have gaps where you hold your breath, and then you stop breathing, so your brain is now exposed to on and off less oxygen. So at the end, you're not fresh. It affects your muscle strength because oxygen is less there. It affects your brain. So I always say vulnerability can be halted by recognizing, are you snoring too much at night? They have put dancing as a highest there to improve your muscle strength as well as memory. And it's not tough at all. All 5 of you join together, have a party and dance. Peps you up. Endorphins are secreted in dancing. Why you should dance and exercise is muscles secrete endorphins. And these endorphins are just like morphine. They give you the kick. And then when you exercise nicely, sleep well also.
Wow.
Okay? So you're a happy person, just listen to some music, you're happy.
We've gone through part 1. We've gone to part 2. And now we come to the final section, part 3. Already we've looked at various dimensions of frailty, fragility, and mobility. But there are also questions that have been raised and which we will be responding in this particular episode. And so we ask that you continue to get involved with this program, to experience it, but even more, to pass it on to others so that they also will benefit on something that really needs to be spoken about and, more importantly, to be faced. So thank you for yet another presence that we have on this last episode. What I'd like to really ask now is, we've looked at frailty. We need to take a look at disability and to say, what's the difference between disability and frailty?
Disability is a physical problem that you have. When you say you have disabled and you cannot walk, that means you cannot walk. Frailty is a general term where the whole body is involved. Now you are frail, that means your whole body system is affected. If you are disabled, only one particular organ is affected. If you are disabled, you may lose your eyesight and you become blind, it's a disability. You may have pain in the knees, joints, that becomes a disability. But frailty, the whole body is affected and you get into problems. And one of the commonest disabilities that we have as you grow older is osteoarthritis. It is not that it started today, it started 30, 40 years ago because you did not care for your knees. Okay, excessively you played, you did whatever it is and you put on weight. Now the effects of that is coming into it and you're not able to move. And that is not frailty. That is disability. You have pain, you cannot move, you cannot walk. This is a problem that you have, which is a disability. So similarly, when you can have other disabilities that can happen, it may be motor, it may be sensory disabilities that you have, and these are fixed. And over a period of time, they remain the same or they become worse. Frailty is once you become frail, you are always going into that mode till you are no more there. So that's what we like to add something.
So, disability is something, as he said, which stays. For example, you have a stroke and you lose one half of the body. Now, that is disabled. Okay. Sometimes disability, you can work at it, but it may not recover. But frailty is something which you can reverse. Now, a disabled person need not be frail. He can have a stroke, but he's not frail. His other muscle mass and all are very good. So we need to rehabilitate, exercise, and continue that. He does not get pushed into frailty because he's disabled and he gets stuck. So there we have what we call as rehabilitation. We rehabilitate him so that we don't, to that disability we don't add frailty. So you have a very, very bad knees that's disabled. You're disabled because your knees are so bad you cannot walk. But then you sit and you don't do anything about the knee. You're going to push yourself into loss of muscle wasting, and then you're going to push yourself into frailty where you get up because of your disability. You pushed yourself into frailty and you fall. So now disability, usually we need lot of aids and rehabilitation, and we need a different type of a support for disabled people. For example, if they have, we need a walker, we may need a walking stick, or we may need, some wheelchair to walk, and all of that. When they are disabled, we sort of need lot of aids. But for frailty, we better not to give aids. You push them, you push yourself to do something very positive to come out of that frailty. If both are present, you are frail and then you get a stroke, and then it adds frailty with disability. Now there we have to work at both. We have to work with your disability as well as we have to work with your frailty. So it is not synonym. So disability is something which requires rehabilitation, which may need aid, which may need support. For example, if your knees are very bad, which we will take as osteoarthritis for mobility, you work on that aspect of disability. But as he said, frailty is something which is very, very, which is basically depending upon your body losing the energy and making you vulnerable in a general term. So we can have frailty, we can have disability, standalones. You can be frail, but you don't have any disability. Everything is fine, but you just don't have that energy. That's only frailty. You have the energy, but for some reason you developed a stroke and the right side doesn't move. So you're not frail, but you're just disabled because of this. As he said, for some reason you have a glaucoma and you lose your vision. Now you're disabled because of this vision, but you're not frail. So disability can, as he said, can occur anyway. So we have to know the difference between the two. Many times people think frail means you're disabled. No, you're not disabled. So you don't have to treat yourself as, I am disabled. No, that is not disability. That is yeah.
So now, disability applies in the physical realm. What about other elements or other aspects of disability?
So you can have vision where you are disabled. So you can have hearing, as I said, where you can be disabled with your. So we give an hearing aid. You wear an hearing aid. You correct your vision. You check for your glaucoma. So many times I have this funny, they're disabled, they cannot walk. And then they will say, I cannot walk, I'm blind, I cannot see. A 60, 70-year-old. And then you check your eye, they have cataract. So now the disability is because of this cataract. Now we tell them, go get operated. No, I'm aged. No, why now operation? Now you're going to get cataract only when you're aged. Similarly, they get confused. The disability which can be corrected, you can have a normal life, to ageism where I'm giving up on life. So it's kind of all muddled in the head. The frailty, understanding disability, which I can get corrected and I can have a near normal life. So I think we need to put it into clear cut boxes. Okay, this is the disability which I correct, they can be normal. You will prevent fall. Now, osteoarthritis of the knee, again, they will say, now you do something for the knee. No, 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 I'm old. Now, why I should do? Now, leave it. But then that disability you're getting when you're aged itself. So, you can have, as he said, a function is affected. So, that causes disability. For example, you have frontotemporal dementia or Alzheimer's. Now, there you're disabled with memory loss. Now, that is not minimal cognitive impairment where just diffuse cerebral atrophy. It's not really Alzheimer's where you can redo your memory. So, some disability you can redo also. Some disability you have to know where I need to give him a support to continue the mobility. So, it's a little crossover, but you know where to put into boxes.
How much does physical disability affect one's attitude, thinking, mentality towards life?
It depends on what the person has been before he developed the disability. If you're a chronic person who keeps cribbing, if the little disability is enough for you not to do anything. But if you're a positive person, even that little disability will say, what is there? I'll walk. So that's a mental attitude is very important. And if, as long as they have that positive attitude that they can overcome the disability, they'll be successful in treatment. This is a very important thing that we don't take into account.
It's like it's a manner of saying, they say that wine becomes better with age. But that's only if the grapes were good in the first place. And I think it's important because the kind of person that you are, really you grow into that person as you grow older. And I think this is something that, that's why this is a talk show, not just for the elderly. I think this is a talk show for everyone. Because it's not just for the elderly, but for those who are living with the elders, who are caring for the elders, and who also, in other words, are preparing for their own later stage of their life.
When I talk about disability, we also, have patients who now have this chronic lung issues and problems, and many times, their lungs are quite badly affected. So we have to put them on BiPAP at home or a home oxygen. So here they're disabled because of the disease. They need help in terms of a BiPAP or a home oxygen. They become also frail because of this. The nutrition drops. Their skeletal muscles for breathing, or the shoulder muscles for breathing goes down. So here, when we are working supporting the disability is that he's not able to take in the air as much as he wants. So that disability we are supporting with BiPAP or oxygen. But then we should not allow the muscles to go frail because I need his muscle strength to help him use the BiPAP. So here I work with frailty also. So I take care of chest exercises and physiotherapy. I take care of adequate nutrition. I take care of good breathing exercises. I take care of his depression. So all of that we take care. So there are conditions when I have disability as well as frailty crossover. So it's like we need to know, okay, at the end of it, we need to address all this is because he has to age gracefully, and whatever be the condition, he has to live, the person, whatever, get the best out of what is left. I always tell them, you have a bottle which is half full. It's up to me to look at it. Oh, half bottle is finished. My half water is empty. What do I do? Now half is gone. Okay, that's one way. But there's another way saying, I still have half left. I will see how I well use this, half a bottle left. So I guess it's how I view my life. So here, frailty, disability, we work through here. So we acceptance here. This is my disability. This is my frailty. I accept here, whatever be it. We work here. We work here to feel positive. That quality of my life, I keep it or I improve. So when I mean quality of my life, it's not Apple phone or not Nike shoes. Okay, it's not that. Quality of my life is I must be able to be independent. And independence, we look at it two level. My basic activities and my extended activities. I need to be independent. I need to look after myself. I should get up and I should move and I should do what I want. I should be able to ring up, get my things. So all of us inherently want to be as independent as possible. We don't want to be dependent. That is why we should understand that to be independent, I need to know my strength of my body, my frailty. In case I have disability, I need to work both, take it positively and try and be as much as I can to do things on my own. And if I have to do things on my own, I need to move. Okay? I need to move. So the basic for any human being is I move.
Remember, with all this, you still have to take drugs for your disease. That is very, very important. You cannot say he is depressed, it is all right, he'll come out of it. When he needs some medication,
You
he
have
needs some medication and he needs to take that medication as long as it's necessary. There are certain diseases for which there is no cure. You need to take medications for life. For example, blood pressure. It is not going to come down tomorrow with any amount of meditation or any amount of loss of weight. It will not come down. You will have to take once you start to take. Similarly with cholesterol. It's a genetic problem. You don't have the enzyme. That's why you have cholesterol in the body. You need to take tablets. And what happens is after some time, people listening, they'll say, oh, we'll stop all the medications and we'll go. But it's very important that you take medications as prescribed. And that means you need to consult your physician regularly.
So just having listened to all of that, I think it leads us into the final segment that we are looking at, and that is mobility. Because if we find ourselves going down the road of frailty, we find ourselves as not addressing the distant aspects of disability, it's going to affect our mobility. And so maybe you could throw light on how we see it, how we face it, and how we can address it.
So I will go with that what he says, that if you have any disease that we call as comorbids, we call it as comorbids, so continue the treatment, whatever, don't. But what has happened to the population now is they only depend on
Google
and medications. Google and medications. But today we are saying, yeah, you take your medications, but there's something else you need to do to have that quality of life. So you need to add, along with medication, these things which we told you right now. So one mobility, I don't know why, many people just ignore or neglect the most important joint, that is the knee. Now, if I ask a large section of people, I see people walking very difficult to climb steps, and so they become stiff. When your baby is born, the baby can take, and you can bend the baby at any which way. But as we age, I am so stiff. I forget about having Parkinson's disease. This session, we are not talking on Parkinson, but those are also which affects mobility. We will go with it. So I'm not able to walk and I'm stiff and my knees are giving a bit of a trouble. I'm not able to climb steps and I'm not able to get on the steps. Okay? But I don't want to do anything about them. So the one joint that is so critical but completely neglected is the knee joint. I see people struggling and, walking with that waddling gait and obese and then not able to go up. And along with this osteoarthritis, it is so common. To me, osteoarthritis is more common than Alzheimer's. And severe osteoarthritis leads to muscle weakness, it leads to fall, it leads to, a person is active, becomes bedridden because fracture of the hip. Okay, it leads 1, 1, 1, 1. Now, with the very bad knee, and then he develops Parkinson's, he becomes even more stiff and restricts mobility even more. And then I'm not able to take even one step forward. And if he has some bit of heart and lung, so the whole issues just stops you from being mobile. So when a person says, I just cannot walk even 2 steps, and he stuck to chair, but here he is fine, he's cognitively, we break up what are the reasons that is affecting his mobility. So how much is because of his, comorbids? He has a severe cardiac failure or he has a lung, that's okay, we deal with that. But he doesn't have anything else. He doesn't have Parkinson's. It's only because of the severe osteoarthritis of the knee, and he's stuck in a chair and he's not understanding that, and because of that put on weight and then become
More dependent.
more dependent. Somebody has to,
And he'll always ask for a medicine which never works
Yes.
at that joint.
and then reduce pain. I have seen abuse of NSAIDs, lot of painkillers. Many times we have patients coming with renal failure, kidney failed. They don't have any other disease, but they come with renal failure because of severe pain. They want to move. They take lot of painkillers, NSAIDs, over the counter, and to relieve the pain. But they would not have gone anywhere to any doctor. Then they land up with
Kidney
renal failure, which we cannot reverse because it is, or they take substeroids in this Kashaya form. They come with steroid dependent complications, all because of the osteoarthritis of the knee. And then many times what happens, they may have a little cardiac, they take diuretic, but they have severe osteoarthritis of the knee, they have incontinence. So they cannot rush to the toilet. They try to rush and then they pass you and they fall and they come with a fracture, all because of the knee. So I want to know how many of you in the audience really can bend your knee and stand, which I will demonstrate. Okay? And where you extend your knee and you don't get the crack, we call it as crepitus. Okay? So that's what is all about. So what do you see yours with knee issues?
knee issues, the problem has to be addressed when you are young. Okay, and most important is to strengthen your leg muscles. That we never bother at all. And when we talk about the leg muscles, it's also the hip muscles. This is one continuum that goes on. It is not just developing these muscles. You have to develop the hip muscles also so that the weight on the knee becomes less. And we do not do exercises which will, our posture, everything puts weight on the knees, which should not be happening. Where you can sit and do something, sit and do things. Why do you stand and do it? Unnecessarily.
Yes.
That's a very important thing that people don't think about. You say that go walking. Fine, go walking. But when you put walking, you are putting weight on your knee. And if you have osteoarthritis, you will not be able to walk properly. Instead of that, go cycling. The cycling will not put weight on your knees. It will put on your hip and the muscles will become the same. Or go swimming. So we need to modify our lifestyle according to the pain that we have. It is not that one thing like walking is the best exercise. No, it depends on what the person has and how that person is going to deal. And ultimately what happens is this goes on, then the patients will go with a lot of pain. They go to somebody and they say, do a knee replacement. And once the knee replacement is there, anything which is foreign will have a lifespan and after some time it will get destroyed. So after 5 years, 10 years down the line, that fails. Again, another knee replacement. Again, the whole thing goes on. All because you have not strengthened your muscles. And nobody is telling you to strengthen your muscles. If orthopedician says replace your knee, that's the easiest thing to do.
So pick it early, your knee. Don't go to the extent where you have to take painkillers. So there are few very simple exercises that you can do for your knee. Lie down on the bed and roll your 2-3 bed sheets and keep it under the knee joint, and then raise it up and bring it down. Okay, raise it up and bring it out. It's very, very effective to reduce the pain. And before getting up, just as you're lying on the bed, raise the leg and hold it. Strengthen here, strengthen your muscles. Whether you have knee pain or not or whatever, go ahead and protect your knee. Because if you protect your knee and quadriceps, even if you trip, you will not fall because you will have the strength in your muscle. So don't wait till the end. So take care of your knee early. So today we have talked early frailty, early cognitive impairment, early mobility issues, which is very, very. And there is another one. You have this chapati rolling pin. Na? So put it under your feet, and so that increases your knee movement as well as your foot sensation. Very simple. Okay. So there's lots of exciting exercises that you can do. Take care of your knee. I think you all will itself know, can I climb the steps or get down? I don't know how many of you have your knee which is strong. So that one, osteoarthritis. Next, mobility will have hip. You need to take care of your hip also. So this, I said, no, one exercise where you sit down, but pretend you're getting up, but you're not getting up. So here it strengthens your hind muscles also and your back muscles. So wherever you're sitting, maybe you're looking at, I was telling Pavel, you want to watch something on the thing, no? So no issues. Keep roll and watch. And press this and press this and press this, whatever, okay? And then there is another for the hip, very, very simple exercises where you go side to side, no? You just go. So keep seeing and then keep going. So one takeaway is, wherever you are, move continuously, okay? You're sitting, keep moving, okay? Don't sit looking at your mobile, because you'll be sitting like this for an hour. You will not know that 1 hour we have sat without thinking, without moving, without exercising. We are sedentary. Mental sedentary, physical sedentary, mobility sedentary. And each of you look how often you spend on the WhatsApp group, send. We don't know. So, the takeaway to prevent and have age gracefully is, be on the move. Be on the move in your body. Be on the move in your mind. Be on the move with your joints. Be on the move. Don't get the... You're not to sit on a chair. Don't sit. Okay? Be on the move. I think this is what I would like to tell them.
Wonderful thing I would like to add what she said is, how many of you write?
Yeah.
That's the important thing, because please start writing diaries, because you're thinking, your hand is moving, your small muscles are moving.
Excellent.
Your coordination of muscles in the upper limb will take place. Okay, these are small things which are there, but we have forgotten. Now we are busy pressing the key and getting other problems.
Yes.
Doctor, you had spoken about geriatric assessment, and also you had spoken about getting prepared before the problems start. So I would like to know, what would be a good age to have these assessments, and where can we go to get these assessments done?
I'm very happy that you understood that there's a need for a separate type of assessing yourself, and here there's no age bar. I think I have decided now to start a term called as pre-geriatric. I think we should start working at 45, 50, because that's how I would like to be when I'm 70, 80. But never too late. So you can start assessment at any point of time. And in Bangalore, there are many centers who have specialized geriatricians who look it into aging issues. One is there in Apollo, then Baptist Hospital and Manipal Hospital, Bangalore, and Ramaya. Today, I think many of the centers have St. John's has a very nice geriatric department. So these are centers which address elderly problems. So you could go ahead, meet the geriatricians there, and I think Dr. Arvind can help in St. John's, and you can go ahead and they will take you through, and then they will assess you, they will give you everything. You can, in fact, Google for geriatric care in Bangalore, and lots of things are happening in Bangalore with respect to elderly. So there are elderly forums and hospitals are interacting. But this is a very good platform, Father, to opening up to this into the community, and it's a very, very nice thing that you're doing, that they understand the need to be looked at differently. So go ahead with these main centers. And then there are some people who are also running a activity center for the elderly, and it's called as a butterfly program, and it is so popular, running so well, and so many have enrolled into this butterfly program. So things are happening in Bangalore, and you could go to these things and get it assessed, and age is no bar. So you will enjoy the assessment.
Doctor, can you throw some more light on how to improve the short-term memory loss?
We have already spoken about how to do mental exercises to keep your memory improved. Now, why do you lose short-term memory? That is because you do not concentrate. Now, if you are concentrating on what you are doing, you will retain that. If you don't concentrate, you will not be able to retain it. So concentration is you cut off other things that you are doing, only concentrate on what you want to remember. You will definitely be able to remember in short term. That's how we increase the short term memory. And if you keep on repeating it for some time, it becomes long term memory.
I would also add to that. There are some two aspects that you can do. First, go get yourself tested. As he said, we have what is a very simple test called as MOCA, which tells us where is your memory issue. Sometimes you think you are having a short-term memory, but then you do fairly well. It is anxiety which is manifesting as a short-term memory, or a slight, down feeling in your emotion. I don't want to use the word depression, but manifesting as short-term memory. So just go ahead and get it assessed in the centers that I told you, which will give you clarity whether it is. But you know very well that you're losing your short-term memory. In case you're forgetting what you ate in the morning, you're trying to recollect and you're not remembering. You met someone and you said something to someone and you cannot remember. So that's called a short-term memory. You can do a good few exercises, a crossword, a Sudoku, walking backwards, third, and fourth, you keep few things in the plate, about 10 to 15 things. Take it away and then see how much you can remember. So you want to improve short-term memory, you have to exercise the short-term memory. That is important. Read a paragraph, close the paper, and then, just like children, that's called rote memory, see whether you can remember it. That's one aspect of exercises that you have to do. The second thing is nutrition. Sometimes you do have some deficiencies in either B complex, what we say, niacin or riboflavin. We go so much of over diet that this essential vitamins we don't take, or some trace elements. Sometimes vitamin D. All these effects. Nutrition can affect short-term memory. But don't here when I talk of supplements, please don't take over the shelf with. Sometimes we see people just taking B12 as if it's eating peanuts every day, one pop up, and another decide you pop up pantoprazole. So gastritis, one here. Don't do that. So go ahead and check your levels, vitamin D or vitamin B12 levels, and then see where you have a lack of nutrition. Sometimes you may not be eating protein at all, may not be sufficient. Go ahead and adjust the nutrition with a geriatrician's opinion on that. Okay, that's very, very important. And third, check your sleep, whether your sleep is adequate. So you're not falling off to sleep, you're getting repeated often, then you have to see whether your anxiety is working at play. So that is important. So first, go and get tested, what we call as MOCA or mini mental scale, which we objectively evaluate your memory. That is a must do. And secondly, these are, before you have time to go, put up these exercises to get your, figure out your nutrition requirement that is there. And most of all, talk to people. Maybe most often we don't talk. So go ahead and chat with people. That is socializing. So these are the ways you can improve your recent memory. Then go to your geriatrician. Then he will take you forward. If he feels, no, I need a scan or something, let him decide. So work on it. Now that you have found out, this is the right time for you to go and get evaluated on your memory.
Just to add on,
And the supplements also. Don't take overdose of calcium and then things like that. You should not. You got to be careful. Sit in the sunlight for about 10 minutes. So about supplements, sir will. Yeah.
when you talk about supplements, all of you think because of the advertisement, Centrum from America is good for women. Okay, and you spend 20 rupees per tablet and take it.
Huh.
And most of the when you look at the contents, they are not enough for a normal person. They're all below normal. Second thing is when you take B12 orally, it cannot be absorbed unless you have intrinsic factor. B12 has to be given an injection if you have a deficiency. But people will swallow,
Doctors are buying 2,000, 3,000.
keep on swallowing B12 without anything. So unless it's been diagnosed that you have a vitamin deficiency, don't take supplements. Only thing that is a recommendation is calcium. Because the calcium that is recommended, if Indian ladies take, their life will become miserable. So her recommendation is 2 grams of calcium, and if you take
Not.
Huh?
We got down to that.
2 grams of calcium, if you take, you'll be constipated forever. Okay, so be careful about that. So you have milk, you have sunlight, use that.
Yeah. One more, where I have seen, coming to me is iron deficiency. That's because we've all shifted to non-stick pans. And we don't use iron at all. Subtly, you will be deficient in iron. And iron deficiency can cause
Tiredness, weakness.
So we never look as a possibility. But all of us use non-stick pan. I don't know, any one of you are going to use iron? We don't.
And not only that, we stopped eating jaggery.
Yeah, we've stopped eating jaggery, we stopped iron. Remember one thing is iron deficiency. Okay, that's something which.
And the cheapest iron tablets are not available in the pharmacy. People is not available.
Before we used to get the Feepol tablets.
It's not available. You get costly ones, which cost almost some 5 rupees or 6 rupees per tablet.
Absolutely. So just get yourself checked. All with who have, we feel this what question has been asked, please go and get evaluated and start your memory exercises, simple ones at home. Do that what we said. Check on your nutrition only after checking with the prescription and social interaction. So we'd go with that.
My question is towards the domain of social, being socially agile as age catches up. Do we start interacting or build an interactive community of an audience of younger, 10 or 15 years younger than one? Or do we stick to within the community? So what is the kind of recommended ideal balance that will help?
I think as human beings, we are social animals. We must relate. If we don't relate, we atrophy in terms of relationship and we die. So relationship is always means going out of yourself. It's an enrichment, but for some people it's a challenge. Because when you relate with people, you can either be accepted or rejected. Now there are different levels and different circles of relationship. You start with the most basic unit, which is at home. And sometimes if you live with 2 or 3 generations in the same home. When it's healthy relationship, it's marvelous. You each grow in your sense of your self-worth and you contribute to the affirmation of others. But if you're dysfunctional, you'll want to run away from the home and seek a place outside. But as you're older, you're stuck in that little environment. When 3 generations are living in the same place, it's sometimes fascinating to see how the parents care for the grandparents of their children. That is not only a caring, it's a learning moment for the children, because they see how the parents have cared for their grandparents. Sometimes if they're living with them, even if they're not living with them, by the way they interact with their own grandparents. And someday, as the parents grow older, the children will remember what it have meant for them caring for others. So that intergenerational social relationship and social mobility is something so important. If there are issues that need to be dealt with, reconciliation, that must be addressed. Taking it to the larger circle, outside the home and outside the family. Meet with the group. Already Dr. Pratibha indicated what it means. It means sometimes we as we grow older, we want to just stay back in our comfort zone. But it's important, we are social beings, that to get involved in a group, sometimes in the parish group, some dioceses have senior citizen cells, to be part of that, because then you meet people of that age. But not only them. So it's not an either or, it's a both and. Sometimes just chatting with the children or the grandchildren. I've seen that with my own father, because they were explaining what a selfie is, what's a mobile, and my father's eyes were just like, he's learning from these little kids what it is all about. So I think we need, and what you mentioned earlier, where the younger generation, we are social beings, we take it seriously. As Christians, we belong to a community. We're not an individualistic religion. We gather, that's why we gather for the Eucharist, we gather together for prayer, we gather in basic Christian communities. And that's why there are already structurally so many things happening. Let us make use of that socially by participating and not sitting on the sidelines.
And I also want to say that nowadays people are living longer. So we have people who are 60s looking after who are 80s and 90s. That's a very difficult situation that I see. And you don't have, younger to you being with you. So here, definitely social interactions with younger generations will definitely help. And you need to take help. Many times I have seen, a 70 taking charge of looking after the 90. And when, as a carer, I always say, when you should be like how, in a flight, they always tell you, first put your mask. Then you can help others. So if you're a carer here who's listening to us, take care of yourself first. It's very important you don't feel guilty if you're taking care of yourself. If you take care mentally, you are fit, physically you take care of yourself, you can take care of your elderly better. And also take help from the community if you need be for help. So today, primary carers being family looking after their elderly, it's becoming a big issue, and we are facing a lot of carer depression, carer burnout, because the social interaction, they lose the touch. So here, if we have a community where youngsters come, support, give a break to this carer. So we encourage that somebody comes, takes care, sit to us with this elderly, so that this elderly carer, all looking after the oldest old. Okay, so 60 to 75, we call ourselves as teenagers. So we are seniors, but we're teenagers of seniors. Okay, then 70 to 85, we call old. Above 85, it becomes oldest old. So we have teenagers looking after the oldest old. So I think social interaction and bringing youth into the forum and making it into a larger community care is the need of the hour.
Thank you. In a country where there is a very vast majority of a young population, we need those who specialize in that branch of medicine as what we call pediatrics. But as we grow older, especially in some countries in the West, where they have fewer children but more elderly people. We need to focus on this area of geriatrics. And our conversation right through with Aging Gracefully has been that. But today it has been enriched by having somebody who's very specifically in the field of geriatrics and of family medicine. And therefore, these insights that we've had looking at frailty, fragility, and mobility has been something that is addressing issues that we are slowly growing into, but not talking enough about. And that's why we have this talk show. It's opening windows. We're very grateful to this audience who have participated not only with their questions, but with your body language, because as we were presenting, we could see it resonating. And I would like to believe that all those who are tuning into this program are also resonating with what is being said. And hopefully, having experienced yourself, you will spread this word around to others as well. Because this is a message not often talked about, and yet so important that we do so. It has been wonderful just going through all these different dimensions. And it's not just looking at them, assessing them. You've been also tasked with some homework, some discipline, some exercises that you must continue. Because this is not just a talk show. We hope this is also a doing show, that you will take forward all that we have discussed and made concrete, relevant in your life, so that as you age, you will truly age gracefully. And so I would like to read a text from the prophet Isaiah. It's chapter 35, verses 3 and the following. Now this was written several centuries ago. But we need to hear the word of God at all times. It does not have a limited shelf life, because the word of God is alive and living. And so I read to you. Strengthen the weak hands. Make firm the feeble knees. Say to those who have an anxious heart, be strong, fear not. Behold, your God will come with vengeance, with the recompense of God. He will come and save you. Then the eyes of the blind shall be opened, and the ears of the deaf unstopped. Then shall the lame leap like a deer, and the tongue of the mute sing for joy. For waters break forth in the wilderness, and streams in the desert. The burning sand shall become a pool, and the thirsty ground springs of water. I continue. And a highway shall be there, and it shall be called the way of holiness. And I move to verse 10. And the ransomed of the Lord shall return, and come to Zion with singing. Everlasting joy shall be upon their heads. They shall obtain gladness and joy, and sorrow and sighing shall flee away. Beautiful words. I can almost imagine they were dancing to it, the thing that you asked us to dance about. Because such is the power of the Word of God that comes to us in the weakness that we feel, in our frailty, in our fragility, so that we will leap and dance with that mobility that God wants us to have. There comes a time when our body may not be fully able to do that, but nothing can stop our minds, our hearts, and our spirits from doing that. And we hope that this wonderful time together will give greater sense and greater meaning to all that we've spoken about, and with the grace of the Lord, even live. And so we give glory to God as we say, glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. Thank you once again for participating in yet another episode of Aging Gracefully, a talk show for evergreens. We hope that it continues to speak to you, but more important, that you will speak of this to others. And so therefore it's so important for you to like, to comment, to share, and most of all to subscribe. And it's free. You don't have to pay for the subscription. You just need to click on that button and you will get a lot of material that comes your way from the Redemptorist Media Center. So we hope until the next time that you will stay fit and age with grace. God bless us all.